and this is the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who'd like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 623-635-115, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. First thing we do is we take a roll call of all the members to confirm that they're satisfied with this form of meeting and to declare a quorum. Virginia Fenwick?
Virginia Fenwick approves.
And Steve?
Steve DeBoer approves.
Paul?
All C. Semple, I approve.
David S. Nixon approves.
Ed Acton approves.
And David H. Reach, I approve.
And Randy Potash, I approve as well. So the way the meetings are conducted are as follows. A hearing notice is read by staff, Central Permitting Coordinator Sarah Clark on my right. After that, there is a presentation of the application or appeal by either a professional or the person applying. Anyone in favor of the appeal or application may speak for up to 5 minutes. Then I will read or summarize all letters, and then after that, anyone against the appeal or who has a specific question may ask that question, and that's also a 5-minute time limit. The applicant may then rebut testimony. Board members may direct questions to anyone present. After that, we hear further information, close the public hearing, the board deliberates, and then after that, we vote on the appeal or application in most cases. All votes are taken by roll call. In order to prevail in Massachusetts, you need to get a 4 out of 5 vote, which is a supermajority. And at the end of the meeting, we close the meeting via verbal confirmation, and we note the time of adjournment. Let's see. So, first thing we're going to do is approve minutes for March 14th, 2024.
I will move to approve the minutes of March 14, 2024.
And Dave H. seconds.
And how do you vote, Dave?
I vote yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
And Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
All votes yes.
As do I. Okay, the first appeal is 24-013.
Application number 24-013, Robert Stevens and Ellen Briggs, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owners of property located at 72 Shore Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 16D, Block 21, Lot B12. The applicant seeks to remove the condition placed on variance number 17-107, granted on December 14th, 2017, that there be no sleeping accommodations within the mill structure. The property contains 37,377 square feet within the R40 zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the Protective Bylaw.
Attorney Litchfield, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Bill Litchfield here on behalf of the applicants Ellen Briggs and Robert Stevens, who are here in the first row. The legal ad references a variance, but in fact, we're seeking only a modification of a prior variance issued by this board in case number 17017, 107 rather, in December of 2017. Better lawyers than I would say that a modification is a lesser included aspect, so it's less than a variance. It's addressed in both the original decision and in Section 14 of Chapter 40A. So we're on perfectly solid ground legally. Back in 2017, your board correctly found that the preservation of this historic structure by moving it to the Briggs-Stevens property on Shore Road from around the corner near to where it had been for about a century warranted the grant of a variance. That variance was required only because the mill was about 18 inches too tall under our bylaw. You correctly found back in 2017 that a hardship existed due to the uniqueness of the historic structure and the potential loss to the town as a whole of the mill in the event of its demolition, which was then quite likely and, in fact, impending, and that the desired relief could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying the purpose and intent of the bylaw. In fact, preserving the mill served the public good and served the purpose and intent of the bylaw. That was consistent with a ream of supportive correspondence that you had, and also with a significant number of favorable speakers, several of whom are here again today. Very late in that meeting, and several of you were members of the board at the time, and perhaps without the typical consideration that this board ordinarily gives to things, a condition was included in the approval that, quote, there shall be no sleeping quarters in the mill structure. That was in response to a concern expressed by one neighbor who was worried about noise. There's a fair amount of noise on Shore Road anyway. It's obviously well-traveled in the summer. It's close to town. And there was nonetheless a concern. Ellen and Robert were delighted by the approval itself. And because the condition was imposed quite late in the meeting without a lot of discussion, they weren't then able to give it full consideration into how that condition would impact the restoration of the mill. Instead, they've spent the last 5 years moving and lovingly restoring the mill, which has been an extraordinary investment of dedication and time and money, probably in the reverse order. And they're well along in the process, one which you observed in your site visits. But they've also been concerned about that restrictive condition and are respectfully requesting that it be removed for several reasons. First, municipal staff, and particularly Judy Giorgio from the Board of Health, have visited the mill and have determined that the room in question on the second floor does not contain a bedroom, is not a bedroom, at least legally as defined under Board of Health regulations. Of course, that's the opposite of the situation we usually have. The Board of Health finds that a particular room is a bedroom. Here, they found it was not a bedroom. The building, when fully restored, may ultimately have a half bath, but it won't be heated, it won't be insulated, and it won't have a kitchen or a separate dwelling unit. But Ellen and Robert would like to have the ability to have the mill used occasionally by friends and family members, primarily grandchildren, of which they have 5, use as sleeping quarters for overflow family. Now, there are those who would probably install a pull-out couch when nobody was looking. Sleeping quarters are sort of vaguely defined, but Ellen and Robert want to follow the rules and have this restriction removed so that grandchildren and family friends might sleep there from time to time, but only on an occasional and limited basis. There are 2 essential and I think persuasive reasons to modify the decision. First, while I anticipate that he can speak for himself, I don't see that he's on the Zoom or Microsoft Team link, but Mrs. Briggs has been in touch with Mr. O'Shea, the neighbor who raised the concern about the noise, and explained the intent of this request. And I'm told that as a grandparent, he understands it. As a grandparent, he might want a mill of his own for overflow grandchildren, but that's beyond the purview of the board today. He sent an email to Ms. Briggs on Monday of this week saying, quote, regarding the mill and your desire to have restored sleeping accommodations for your grandchildren and friends on an occasional limited basis, we have no objections. So the reason, as I understood it, that the board imposed that condition was to accommodate Mr. O'Shea's concerns, and he does not object to this modification request. Of at least equal importance, relocating and saving the mill was part of a broader historic preservation effort of which Ellen has been a significant part as founder of Preserve Our Past. And in granting the variance, you noted the historic preservation goal being furthered by your approval. That the townspeople who enact all of our bylaws are favorable to historic preservation was recently illustrated by the change in our zoning bylaw affording special consideration to projects which help to preserve historic structures. Sarah was kind enough to bring up that photograph. That's from 1932. The mill had sleeping quarters. It is not a traditional bedroom, but it is nonetheless sleeping quarters. And there was, back in 1932, a magazine story about the mill that said, quote, "Going upstairs, one comes to an octagonal room, that room, reproducing as faithfully as possible a whaler's cabin. Here are two bunks, the upper of which is reached by a ladder made by a sea captain. Barnacles still hang from the timbers in this room, and a captain's original sea chest is used as a dressing table. Through the room's many windows, the open ocean is visible, and one has there a feeling of being out to the sea." Now, I'm not sure whether you have the barnacles still, but you would like to restore what was historically a part of the mill, which has, for 100 years, had sleeping quarters. Ellen and Bob want to faithfully recreate it as it was, limited to occasional use by friends and family members without a kitchen in a building that's unheated. Having sleeping quarters like that, which is not legally a bedroom, is an appropriate, and I think you can find a reasonable modification to request. Your board correctly found that a variance was warranted to allow the windmill to be moved and saved. And we, not just Ellen and Bob, but the neighbors and the townspeople appreciate that decision as well as the result. The modification of that decision today, as requested, will, I think, and you can find, further the preservation of the mill's historic nature and can be accomplished sort of a half special permit argument, half variance argument, but can be accomplished without any detriment to the neighborhood. And it is not only without derogation to the purpose and intent of the bylaw, but very much consistent with it. I am aware that this board loves to read letters and invariably does read letters, and that the members of the board have read the correspondence. In light of the number of letters and recognizing that you have read them, we would waive the reading of the full list of correspondence. That is the extent of my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Lear. Live at 296 Main Street in Chatham. Although that might not sound like it's right near the Briggs house. In fact, I can see it from my house, so I'm near neighbor. And for the reasons that Mr. Litchfield just stated, I certainly approve and the application on that basis. In addition, I happen to be, in the interest of full disclosure, a member of the Historical Commission. And you may recall that almost exactly 2 years ago, your board and our commission worked together for a zoning bylaw change to incentivize people preserving historically significant houses on their property. And they did that by using some allowing more flexibility in setback and lot coverage. Conversely, the action by this board 6 years ago serves as a disincentive to historic preservation. And for that reason, I think it is appropriate that we get our acts together for our mutual goal of preserving historic properties. So I'd ask you to grant the application.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet Tennyson, and I serve on the Chatham Historical Commission. And I appreciate the rules and regulations that help keep Chatham the charming community that includes the preservation of its historic structures. Ellen and Robert are dedicated to preserving and restoring historic structures that contribute to the town's charm as well. And the family windmill they saved and moved to their property is an excellent example of this. Historically, it was used as a place where the grandchildren could play and have overnight sleepovers. Ellen slept there as a child. I encourage you to grant the variance they seek so that it can return to its historic use and charm. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anybody else here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anybody on Teams? Okay, so at this point, we're going to have questions from the board. Dave Nixon, questions? Oh, forgot that part. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I jumped ahead a little bit. So, very enthusiastic by by all your comments. So at this point, I'm going to just note that we have had 21 correspondences this time. We had more last time, all in favor, and they all sound a lot like those comments. We're not going to read them. We're going to take council's advice and spare you of that. But I will read Judith Giorgio's note. That needs to be on the record. Judith Giorgio is our health agent, and on 4/9/24, she said, I have visited the mill site with staff, and I have concluded that it does not meet the definition of the bedroom under the current definition. The property has no adequate heat source nor plumbing in the building. The use of the dwelling for sleeping would be at the risk of the owner and would be strictly limited to family. The main house is registered as a short-term rental, and the use of the mill as a bedroom or for sleeping by renters would be strictly forbidden. Did you want to comment on anything?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I actually took the liberty of drafting and haven't sent, but I will present a suggested condition in response to Judy's comment that this would be a part of your decision if you approve the special permit, and I appreciate your optimism in going forward to that next step. Quote, the condition prohibiting sleeping accommodations within the mill structure imposed in decision number 17107 is eliminated, and consistent with its historic use, sleeping accommodations for occasional use by friends and family members may be allowed. However, the mill shall not be used as sleeping accommodations in conjunction with any short-term rental of the main house. I think that would serve Ms. Giorgio's suggestion.
Okay, so you're going to provide that to her?
I'll bring it to Sarah if the board
Yeah.
wants to impose it.
Oh, okay, sure. The only thing I noticed that it said family, it didn't say friends in, so. We'll do it. But when we get to conditions, we'll.
Thank you. I would simply respond that if we go back far enough, I suppose we're all related to a degree. But the goal is to have it to be limited to, I know what Judy wrote, but in, I think, a prior correspondence from December that Sarah may have in the file, I think there was discussion in which Judy was involved, which talked about friends and family members, but it's up to the board.
Okay, oh, good, as long as it's up to us. Very good, very good. All right, so at this point, is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate. See no one. Okay, now questions from the board. Dave Nixon.
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay. Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
Ed.
No questions.
Judy.
No questions.
Steve.
I have no questions.
And Paul.
One question. In the original application in 2017, there was talk of putting a bathroom in the downstairs area. I take it that has not yet been done?
It has not yet, Mr. Semple. I think I mentioned that there may be, at some point in the future, a half bath, but it would necessarily be on the first floor. It couldn't be upstairs. There will be no heat, there will be no insulation, but a half bath would be, no member of the board is old enough to have this issue, but some of us have to get to the bathroom relatively quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, so any question? That was your question?
No other
Paul?
questions.
Okay, I have no questions, so Paul?
I will move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote, Dave?
And Vale votes yes.
Yes?
Paul?
All votes yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
As do I. All right, deliberations. Dave Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, when I looked at this, I spoke with our PPO, that's a primary permitting officer, and I said, why aren't we just doing a modification? We've already had the variance hearing, we already agreed on it, granted it was a number of years ago, but the structure hasn't changed at all. And it was pointed out to me, well, we don't have a mechanism for doing that. Unlike a special permit, where you could come in, if we gave you a special permit, and say, would you please change that? Okay, so we can do that. Okay, so that's why we're kind of going through the variance again. In relation to a comment that Mr. Litchfield made, the then chairman came up with this restriction at the last minute. And as it turned out, it wasn't necessarily in response to the neighbor who was graciously written in favor of this. And it was unfortunate that it was done without the applicant's knowledge or really any forewarning. So just to qualify that. So what do I think of this? I think it is a modification of a variance that we've already approved. And I do believe we should grant it. It certainly fits all of the criteria for a variance. And in relation to the bathroom, just in case, and I was shown where it would go. You go in the north side door, and there's a little closet there, and that's where we go. And that certainly is a better solution than having a porta potty in the yard for the entire summer. That's not attractive, and nobody's going to like it. So I think in our vote, we should indicate that we encourage that bathroom in that room, and just so it's there on the record. Thank
And
you.
you're also in favor of those conditions, I take it?
Well, no, I don't think a condition is necessary, frankly.
Okay.
What we have is an opinion from Judith, and she's very smart and very, I don't see that we need that condition. I could be wrong on that.
Okay, very good. So Virginia Fenwick, deliberations.
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for saving the mill. It's a special piece of Chatham's history, and right on the seaside. And I'm grateful, and based on the correspondence, the outpouring the first time, the outpouring the second time, many citizens, visitors in Chatham are grateful. I also want to assure everyone who did write in that we all do read all the letters. So everyone on the board has read the letters that you took time to send, and we want to thank you for doing that. And then also another important role that we play is we go to every site, we visit the site. So we have seen not only the mill, but several of us have been invited, as well as staff, to see the inside. So we're very familiar with the description that you've talked about. So I just wanted to start with that. I think, well, I'm in agreement with Mr. Nixon. The health department, the first sentence of the health department letter said, the structure does not have a bedroom. We're here today to remove the condition that was put in place over 5 years ago, which has been strictly adhered to, my understanding, from the Briggs. So I don't see that another condition needs to be replaced. We're here to evaluate removing that one. So I see no reason, and also I want to comment on what Mr. Lear said about the change in the bylaw. My understanding, I think what he read was that occurred after 2017, when this was heard. And it is all about trying to encourage historic preservation. And the Briggs, again, my understanding, have exerted a tremendous amount of energy, effort at considerable, their own expense, to restore this, and that we should be celebrating it, not restricting the use of it. So I would not be in support of restricting.
Okay, thank you. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, I certainly agree with everything that's been said previous to this, and I want to thank you for taking on this project, restoration project, that's, I know it's probably gone on longer than you anticipated or wanted it to, but I think everybody appreciates the effort that you've put in, and, it sounds like it could be a lot of fun. I spent 2 nights in a lighthouse a couple years ago, and I thought that was probably the most amount of rustic sleeping I could have done, but this sounds like this might top it. But I think it could be a lot of fun, and it'd be a nice project, I think. So, good luck.
All right, great. David, deliberations.
I agree with previous comments. I watched the tape to refresh my memory of what had taken place, and I think at that point I expressed that I didn't think the condition was necessary, but I would go along with it, which I did. I kind of, especially now looking at it all, I wish that I'd pushed back a little bit more on it, to be honest with you, because I think it was generated from one abutter's concerns, which was addressed and also spoke about the rental of the main house and some concerns about this would be used as a bedroom or whatever. And so but I looked at, and then this afternoon, because I wasn't sure, what we would encounter today, I got my Google Maps out and calculated the distance from that abutter to the windmill, and it's 160 feet. And in the R40 zone, based on the setbacks in the R40 zone, the bylaw presumes that 50 feet is enough distance between structures to provide adequate privacy. So these are some things I would have preferred to have pointed out at that time. So, and for that reason, for all the others said, I would also agree, I don't think that we need to substitute a new condition on this. I think Judy's statement stands, and as far as those issues about rental and things, that's a much larger issue than this particular property. And I do think that the effort that they've gone through to do this preservation and do historic preservation, if anything, deserves that we be a little more lenient than we might normally be under other circumstances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ed Acton.
I have to say, when I originally saw this, and I saw that it was a variance, I was, suspect. But I went out to the property, looked at it, and researched it, and that windmill meets all the setbacks. It meets the coverage. That restriction, to me seems somewhat arbitrary or capricious. If the owner wanted to have a bedroom there, and as long as it met the, health requirements and met the building the building code, I wouldn't have a problem with it. So I don't see any issue, quite honestly. And if I was voting today, I would vote yes.
Very good. Paul, your thoughts?
I agree with the sentiments that have been expressed. I think that the initial condition arose out of the concerns that Mr. O'Shea had for the proximity of his place to the mill and the fact that it could be, lead to lighting problems and noise problems and so forth because it was being used as a short-term rental. I think that the condition was imposed as a result of that, but really, the variance was in front of us for a height problem, had nothing to do with the bedrooms or use of the sleeping conditions. It seems to me that, and it was specifically designed to deal with sleeping and not bedroom because at that time, bedroom was considered to be too narrow a definition, I think, and because it's controlled by the town health regulations and the state regulations. I assume the reason why it's not considered to be a bedroom at this point is because it does not meet the minimum standards of fitness for human habitation as such, i.e. heating and plumbing, which do not exist. So my feeling is that we really should not be messing with conditions with respect to this particular property, given that the height restriction is the one that we should be dealing with. I don't think we should impose a restriction based on sleeping accommodations, and I don't think we should deal with the bathroom. I think all of that should be dealt with by the health department and Judith Giorgio. So that would be my view.
Okay, well, and I have to say, I agree with everybody, but I'm in perfect alignment with what Ed said. This was a height variance, and that was arbitrary and capricious. It totally was to start talking about whether or not people can sleep in there, especially where it met the setbacks. So I'm really happy that you came, and I'm happy that it looks like we're going to vote in favor of this. And so, Paul?
I will move to approve the application as submitted. I think it satisfies all of our conditions with respect to a variance, and I think it resolves a problem that we in part created.
And Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote, Dave?
And Veach votes yes.
Yes.
And Ginny?
Yes.
Paul votes yes.
And I vote yes as well. Congratulations, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Whenever Sarah's ready, we'll go to the next application.
Application number 24-027, Ann M. Kerner and Eric W. Kerner, 2 Sherlock Lane, Westford, Mass. 01886. Owners of property located at 44 Spring Hill Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 14I, Block 38D, Lot N25. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of an addition. The existing dwelling is non-conforming in that it is located 23.7 feet from the northerly abutter. The proposed addition will be non-conforming in that it will be located 22.3 feet from the northerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,487 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 1,772 square feet, where 2,850 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 20,127 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protected Bylaw.
Okay, so online, we have Ann and Eric Corner, perhaps?
Yes, we're both here, and this is Eric. How are you this afternoon?
Welcome. So go ahead and proceed with your application, with your presentation.
Thank you very much. So my name's Eric Kerner. I'm here with my wife, Ann. We're property owners at 44 Spring Hill Road in North Chatham.
Sir, if you could make your volume a little louder and per etiquette, take off your hat.
I'm very sorry and happy to do that. Is that any better?
Very good.
Great. So my family's been coming to Chatham for over 70 years. I've actually been coming for the entire my life of 60 years. We're very appreciative of the zoning bylaws and their intentions. And with that as background, we'd like to construct a screened three-season porch at the rear of our home. The footprint of the porch essentially overlays a portion of the existing deck footprint. And as was mentioned, we will be slightly inside the 25-foot setback from our property line to the east. The porch would extend to 22 feet 3 inches from the property line, which is just over a foot closer than the existing deck footprint. Our options for the porch were limited in width by not wanting to extend beyond the side of the house to the north and by an existing bulkhead to the south, and wanting to have adequate room for a dining table and a small sitting area. As best we can tell, there's no detrimental effect of the structure to the view from the road or the front of the house. It's completely hidden to the rear, and there are woods separating our home from the properties to the east on Old Mail Road. So that's basically our request, and with that, I'd open it up to any questions.
Do you have a copy of the criteria?
I have the information that was provided from Sarah in terms of the setbacks and the property size, house versus property size. Is that what you're referring to?
No, Sarah's going to pull it up for you, sir, and I'll help you through it if you need it.
Okay.
There's a list of 12 criteria. Do you see that?
Yes, yes.
So
and I'm-
if you could just run through, the ones that you think are applicable,
Sure.
that would be helpful.
Sure. Okay. So adequacy of the size of the site, as I understand it, based on the 15% limitation, we're well under that restriction. And so I think that also addresses the second item, which is compatibility of the size of the structure with neighboring properties. The houses in our neighborhood are all of relatively similar size, and this would not change that. Our total house square footage is 2,000 square feet. With the addition of this deck, it would add 280 square feet to that. I think I addressed the suitability of the site, impact on neighboring properties or the natural environment. Again, we already have a deck where this structure would be. It extends a couple feet beyond that deck, and as I mentioned, 1 foot 4 inches closer to the property line. So there's really no change in terms of the landscaping. In terms of impact of scale, the roof line is well below the roof line of the house. It's typical for a structure of that size with a sloped roof. No impact in terms of sewage disposal, water, noise, litter, utilities. Visual impact on the neighborhood I addressed with my comment in regard to the porch will not be visible from the front of the house. It's directly into the back of the house from the road.
Okay.
And can you scroll down a little bit, Sarah, if there are any more? And then floodplain is not an impact for this property.
Right. Okay, so does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
All right, very good. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate. Seeing nobody in the audience and no one online, I will read the one correspondence from our health agent, Judith Giorgio. She writes on April 9th, 2024, I have no concerns about the proposed greenhouse addition to this property. And now, is there anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate. Seeing none here and none online, take questions from the board. Dave Veach.
I have no questions.
Ed?
No questions.
Dave Nixon?
No questions?
Paul?
No questions.
Steve?
I just have one question. Could you, and I think you explained it, but could you explain one more time why it needs to extend beyond the existing deck?
Yes, so we actually had looked at several locations around the house, and for a variety of reasons, the others were not suitable. For one, they would have been much more visible from the front of the house. By putting it in the back of the house, we're limited on the south side by an existing bulkhead. So we're actually going within 4 inches of the edge of that bulkhead and couldn't go further. And on the north side, if you look at the line of the proposed screen porch, it's the line of side of the house. So if we were to extend it further, that would have been a suitable design. So those were the limitations left and right. And then in terms of the depth, we were just advised in terms of being able to fit a table on one end and then a small seating area on the other, that 20 feet would be an appropriate distance, so it added an extra foot.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ginny?
No questions.
All right, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and votes yes.
Yes?
All vote yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations. Ginny?
Yeah, I thought that it's a nice lot size, and the project looks like it's very a modest project, meets our criteria and not substantially more detrimental.
All right. Steve?
I feel the same way. It is, getting slightly, I think you said 14 inches or so, or 1 foot forward, closer to the setback. But I think the houses that are on the other side of that property line are quite a bit elevated on Old Mail Road, I believe. So I don't think you're really encroaching, although you might be getting closer to the property line, I don't think you're really encroaching on their privacy. So, I think it's a nice project, and it should serve you well.
Okay. Dave Veach, deliberations.
I agree. I mean, I think if anything, by putting a roof over what's now a deck, you've probably increased privacy of the neighbors. So certainly not substantially more detrimental. It's an improvement. Don't even see it from the street. I will support it.
Okay. Ed?
I would certainly support it. It's a very small modification and certainly not substantial or detrimental to the neighborhood.
Dave Nixon?
Yeah, I see no issues that would make this not acceptable.
And Paul?
I agree with my colleagues.
And a motion?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds
And how do you vote?
and votes yes.
And how do you vote?
Yes?
And Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
And Paul
Paul?
votes yes.
You just did that.
I
So
think-
now do we need
I think we
conditions?
deliberated.
Conditions, and let's take a vote on the project.
Okay. In terms of conditions, I think other than the standard that all construction activity and vehicles contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner, that may be all that's necessary.
Does anybody else have any comments on conditions? Dave Nixon? No? All right, so now let's take a vote on the,
So I will move to approve the application as submitted with one condition, that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner.
And Dave Veach seconds
and how do you vote?
and votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
And Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
As do I. Congratulations, it is unanimous. Wherever you, oh, they're online, I forgot, yeah. Okay, you're all
Thank you
set,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along here, when Sarah's ready, we're gonna go to the third application, 24-028.
Application number 24-028, 19 Highland LLC, care of William G. Litchfield Esquire, 330 Orleans Road, North Chatham, Mass. 02650. Owner of property located at 19 Highland Avenue, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15E, Block 47, Lot 57. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change non-conforming structures on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and garage and the construction of a new dwelling and garage. The existing dwelling is non-conforming and that it is located 21.2 feet from the road where a 25-foot setback is required and 9.3 feet from the easterly abutter. The existing garage is non-conforming in that it is located 0.5 feet from the westerly abutter and 7.5 feet from the northerly abutter. The proposed dwelling will be non-conforming in that it will be located 9.3 feet from the easterly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The proposed garage will be non-conforming and that it will be located 0.8 feet from the westerly abutter and 5.7 feet from the northerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,559 square feet, 22%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,190 square feet, 30.9%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 70 feet of frontage where 100 feet is required, and contains 7,078 square feet where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protected bylaw.
Welcome back, Mr. Litchfield.
Thank you, Ms. Potash. Members of the board, Bill Litchfield here on behalf of Bob and Susan Gallagher. Bob is in the front row, and with us also is Mark Zebrat of Zebrat and McCarthy. Mark did the plans for what we would like to build at 19 Highland Avenue. And Sarah, maybe you would be kind enough to bring up the house plans, the elevations. That would be appreciated. What is there now, which Mark and Mr. Dubus and I have known for the last 65 or 70 years, is a simple one-story house of no particular charm. And Mark has designed, I think, a very, very attractive gable end to the front Greek Revival as shown there, which is I think, extremely attractive garage proposed for the rear. Which is much more in keeping with Highland Avenue on Old Harbor Road. There are 3 or 4 Greek Revivals in a row. This obviously Highland Avenue runs right into Old Harbor, and we think this would be an appropriate replacement structure. Obviously, like everything in the neighborhood, and this is sort of a segue into the criteria as to adequacy of site, including building covered in the setbacks, all of the lots in the neighborhood are non-conforming. That neighborhood existed before we had zoning. But notwithstanding existing nonconformities as to lot size and setbacks, the site is adequate for the existing house. I think you can find the site to be adequate for the construction of the replacement home and garage. Yes, the coverage increases, the percentage is high, but we are eliminating the street setback nonconformity, moving the house further back from the street, and we're not exacerbating those of the sidelines. As to compatibility of size, on the 3rd page of the handout, there is a comparison. We currently have a small lot and a small one-story house with excess coverage, which is characteristic of the neighborhood, but it currently is compatible with the surroundings, even though the house itself may not be. As expanded, it will, in my opinion anyway, become more compatible with the neighborhood. Again, it's being moved further back from the street to meet the 25-foot setback, and some of the excess coverage relates to the porch, which I think is an attractive architectural feature, and also to the garage, about which I'll touch in a moment. The full basement inflates the gross floor area number, but the living area remains consistent and reasonable with others, consistent with others in the neighborhood and reasonable, and I think you can find it's in keeping with the surroundings. As to the garage, I know some members of the board are particularly interested in them. This one is too small to fit in a modern standard. The one that's there now is too small to fit in a modern standard size car. So in order to have a garage, we need to expand it a bit. We could have reduced the coverage by eliminating the garage, in which case you'd have 1 or 2 cars sitting in the driveway. I don't think that would be a wise choice to have made. So keeping the garage while it increases the coverage is appropriate. As to the extent of increase in nonconformity, the existing nonconformities are as read by Sarah in the hearing notice. Coverage again increases, but we are changing that by getting rid of the street setback nonconformity, and the garage is far at the rear. It is still consistent with the neighborhood. As to suitability of the site, there are no natural environment issues. As to scale, sighting, mass views, and vistas, what is there now speaks for itself. It's far from massive with no impact on views and vistas. But what Mark has designed there is an appropriate, I think, as to style Greek Revival with a porch. The scale remains appropriate. It will have a positive impact on the streetscape rather than a negative one. The 1 3/4 story house is consistent with the street, but at, I believe it's 24 feet, is it not, Mark, height? At 24 feet, we're not maximizing the height, which could go up to 30 feet. And as you know, the garage and the barn are set far at the rear. That elevation is two-dimensional, but the garage is way at the back of the lot. As to compatibility of use, we have a residential use, which will continue, adequacy of water and sewer, we're on town water. The health agent has reviewed the plan and has no concerns. Traffic flow and safety, noise and litter, adequacy of utilities are not involved. That leaves us then with a question, whether this proposed house, architecturally appropriate and providing for additional but still reasonable living area with a garage large enough to fit a modern automobile, is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. I first spoke with Bob, I think almost 2 years ago, about the plans that he had to make some changes. He has worked long and hard with Mark to design something that is appropriate. He and Susan have consulted with their neighbors as to the design of the replacement house, its impact on the neighborhood, and they have received strong support. The chair will later read 3 letters, not 21, but 3, and from 3 very close abutters. The abutter on Old Harbor Road immediately to the west, and the 2 abutters on Highland immediately to the east. You obviously make a determination of substantial detriment to the neighborhood, but in a neighborhood like this, comments as positive as those in the file are, I think, instructive, and I hope they will be persuasive. I think you can find the proposed change is consistent with other upgrades on Highland Avenue, further toward Seaview Street, but this is of a much more modest scale. It's appropriate for this end of the street. It's an attractive design. The house is reasonable and consistent with its surroundings. Yes, the footprint increases by about 500 square feet, but sensibly, we're retaining the garage, and that bumps up the coverage. Similarly, the porch, which I think is very attractive, does the same. So in light of the criteria and the plans in this neighborhood, and particularly with the strong support of the abutters who are most affected by it, I think that you can find the proposed changes are not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and can approve the special permit request. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing no one here and no one online, I will read the correspondence. There are 5, two from staff and 3 from people in the neighborhood. So the first one is from Judith Giorgio, the health agent, 4924. She writes, I have reviewed the plan to rebuild the dwelling at this property. The proposed dwelling is acceptable to replace the existing 3 bedrooms. The existing septic system will be reused. I have no concerns. And then we have a note from Christina Bassett from the Historical Commission, and she writes that the CHC found 19 Highland Ave not historically significant and did not impose a demolition delay, and that was on April 11th, 2024. Then we have a letter from Joseph and Meredith DeBarista, and that was on April 8th, 2024. We are writing in support of the petition of our neighbors, Bob and Susan Gallagher, for a special permit to construct a new home and garage at 19 Highland Ave. As immediate abutters, we are in favor of the proposal, which by no means is detrimental to our neighborhood. The Gallaghers have spent several years working on their plans and have done a good job designing appropriate replacements for the house and garage. As we understand, they've moved the house back to eliminate one non-conforming aspect, and the footprint of their new house will be in keeping with our little neighborhood where all of us have undersized lots. We went through a similar process with our home at 23 4 years ago, and while we also increased our excess coverage, the result was good for us and our neighborhood, and we think the same will hold true for the Gallagher proposal. We urge the board to support this request. Then we have a note from Stephen E. West and Susan T. West on April 8th, 2024. We are direct abutters of the Gallagher home on 19 Highland Ave, and we are writing in support of their request for a special permit to demolish and rebuild their house and garage. We understand the need for more living space and a reasonable expansion of coverage, part of which stems from the proposed porch, in part relates to their need for a larger garage. The porch will be a welcome architectural feature, similar to ours, and while the garage will only be inches from our shared lot line, we have no objection to it or the overall proposal, and we understand it also involves eliminating their street setback nonconformity. Our family has enjoyed being part of the Highland Ave Old Harbor neighborhood for several generations, and we care very much about it. The scale, style of the proposed house are compatible with our neighborhood and will fit nicely. Given some of the things which are being built in town, we are fortunate to have neighbors who have an appreciation of what belongs in Chatham, and this design reflects that understanding. This is an appropriate project, and it will not be detrimental to our neighborhood. We hope the Board of Appeals will approve in that respect. Then we have another note from Mark J. Sullivan and Heidi Sullivan on April 8th, 2024. We own property at 29 Highland Ave, and in fact formerly owned 19 Highland Ave, so we are very familiar with this property. We are writing in support of the application of our neighbors, Bob and Susan Gallagher, to demolish and rebuild the existing house and garage. Having owned the property, we know its limitations and understand the desire for the Gallaghers to have some additional living space. All the properties in our neighborhood are non-conforming, and what the Gallaghers propose to do is sensitive to the location and will be compatible with the changes and improvements which have occurred. We are close abutters to this property and fully support Bob and Susan in their request for a somewhat larger house and garage, which will have no negative consequences to our neighborhood. In fact, it will not be detrimental and instead be an improvement. We urge the Board of Appeals to approve this special permit. That concludes the letters. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please make it known. Seeing no one here with their hand raised and no one online, we'll go with questions from the board. Steve?
Well, I'd like to say I like this project very much. The one question I was going to ask was if you ever considered rotating the garage maybe 90 degrees and sort of tucking it in behind the house, so that, and then you would end up with sort of an L-shaped driveway. So you would eliminate the less than foot setback to the west.
I can't tell you whether it was considered or not. I know we can't go too far to the east because of the septic system. The West family, which is immediately adjacent to that lot line, has no objection to it, and the garage and driveway are there now.
Right.
So I can't specifically answer the question, Mr. DeBoer. I don't know whether Mr. Gallagher or Mr. Zebrat can, if I could, Madam Chairman.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mark Zebrat. We did look initially at relocating the garage to a better location. The problem is that if we move it further to the east, just as it is to get it further off the lot line, it puts a curve in the driveway, makes it much more difficult to get a car out of it. If we rotate the building 90 degrees and approach it from the west side, we really end up with a significant amount of driveway on the property. You need about 35 feet when you back out of that garage. So that essentially would kind of push it all the way over to the east side and cover a lot of the property with driveway. So we felt leaving it where it is, where the neighbors really didn't have a problem with it, like it there, we felt that was the best location.
Thank you. Steve, any more
Okay, thank you.
questions?
That's it, thank you.
No more questions? Okay, Ginny, questions?
No questions.
No questions? Paul, questions?
No questions.
No? Dave Veach?
I have no question.
Ed Atkins?
Yeah, maybe a question for Mark or Mr. Litchfield. Currently, is there a full basement in the property?
No, there is not. There's a partial full basement in there.
Yeah, so it looks like the new basement is approximately about 2,000 square feet, that's adding to that gross floor area where
Yeah, it
there really
does.
isn't much of a basement now.
Yeah, that's one of the, I give you gross floor area, but to me, it's nonsensical. If I have a 1,000 square foot, one-story home with no basement, it's got 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. If I have that same house with a basement completely below grade that no one can see, the gross floor area is 2,000 square feet. So to me, it's a false calculation, and in this case, it does inflate the Gallagher number inappropriately, but it's in your rules, and I follow your rules.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you for that. Dave Nixon, questions?
Well, Mr. Litchfield, I like the garage, but that's it. So, you know what I'm gonna say. It's already coverage-wise, and I'm taking out of your chart 101 Old Harbor, because that is a itty-bitty house, and it's got nothing to do with that neighborhood, I don't think. And really part of the garage that it's part of. Anyway, so we're already at 22%, the largest in the neighborhood. And you want to go to almost 31. This is a gigantic leap. So tell me why you couldn't have a house designed that kept it at 22 but added a second floor.
It would not have provided that the house that the Gallaghers would like to have. Certainly, we would be doubling the gross floor area by doing that. But in terms of the house itself, it remains a fairly modest house. The footprint of, I don't want to misstate it, the footprint is less than 2,200 square feet, which is not a large house. It is a small lot, we know that, but it is not out of keeping with the neighborhood. And again, as I said, you make the decision, and I know it's a jump, and I had this conversation with Bob Gallagher and with Mark. I said, there's going to be a question about going to that number. If the people in the neighborhood who were going to live with it, and perfectly candid, particularly Mr. West, who was immediately next door and who was not shy about expressing his views, if they don't have any problems with it, notwithstanding the percentage, it, to me, is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Two other aspects. This property is across the street from a very, very large parking lot with thus a large area of open space. And to the visual sense, we get sort of credit for that large open space area, except on Saturday afternoons and Sunday mornings. So it's not going, it's not going to loom over everything because there's nothing on the other side of the street. And again, I fully anticipated the question. I understand it. I recognize the percentage is high. The hard number, the actual number, is not excessive. And again, those who live there are supportive of the request.
Okay, questions? Paul?
I have no questions.
And did I miss anybody with questions? No? Everybody had their questions? Yep, and I don't have any questions at this point, so, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach
And
seconds.
how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
Ginny?
Ginny, yes.
Paul?
Paul, yes.
As do I. All right, deliberations. Dave Veach?
I'm not as concerned or put off by the lot coverage change. This is a really nice design in that location. I think it very much fits in, especially on this end of the street. I kind of find other parts of Highland Ave to have seen some architectural exuberance. And I'm happy that this is a very handsome-looking, classic-looking building. It fits right in, certainly on this end of the street. It's not, and thus, and it is, so yes, it's a small lot, and we get things come to us, proposals on small lots. Maybe some of my thinking about some of that is influenced by the part of town that I live in, where there are a lot of small lots and buildings close together, and so I tend to see the streetscape independently of the lot size themselves. So I don't find it to be substantially more detrimental. I think it's a nice proposal, and I find that it meets all our criteria, and I'll support it.
All right. Dave Nixon, deliberations.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, my huge concern. To me, because you already have coverage-wise a home that's almost 50% larger than the zoning allows for there, that to then ramp it up so that now is going to be double is really pushing the envelope too far. As I mentioned, I could see having this home go up and adding space as we go up so that the coverage would be equal to what it is. But to me, this is just too much of a jump beyond anything else in the neighborhood. And already, as I mentioned, it's the largest. So I don't think that I could vote and truly believe that this isn't substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I just think it is.
Ginny?
Okay, Highland Avenue is a great street. I too understand the desire to want to increase the size and expand. The lot is small. I agree with my colleagues that you presented a really thoughtful proposal with respect to the setbacks. You've made an improvement to the one on the street, and you've kept the other ones where they were. They're all under what's required, but we get that it's a non-conforming, as you mentioned, non-conforming lot. All of them are on that street. So that was really, I could tell that was a challenge, and your plan was really thoughtful there. The height is great, really appreciate that. I agree with Mr. Nixon, the coverage is a problem. In my view, when I look at the chart that you have here, Mr. Litchfield, it is a 40% increase to what's there now, 22%, which is, as Mr. Nixon pointed out, if you take out 101 Old Harbor, it's the largest coverage on the street, and yet it has the second smallest lot. So when I think of neighborhood, I think a little more broadly than just Highland Street. I do agree that there's some, that all the the homes are challenged on that street, but, more broadly, when you're looking at Chatham, the coverage is so important to try to make sure that it's appropriate, broadly, and I think it's too much of an increase. If it could be just shrunk a little bit. I love the plans and the design, and I can appreciate the desire to increase your space. It's just a little too much for the lot. That's my view.
Ed, your thoughts on deliberations?
Well, as far as like the gross floor area, a substantial amount of that is basement. And then you are, it's one floor now, you're adding a second floor, so you're getting that increases also. I do see ways you could reduce the coverage. The porch could be eliminated, the shed dormer off the garage could be eliminated, but I think that adds to the architecture and to the usability of the property. To have a nice porch fronting on Highland and say hello to your neighbors. Certainly that one-car garage, unless you had the little shed off of it, it would be impossible to really get in and get out and store a few hand tools or a lawnmower or anything. So I understand why some of these increases are necessary. I'm not voting today, but if I was, I'm a little bit skeptical of the size, but I understand some of the additions and why they're there, and they do add to the footprint, but I believe they're necessary, so I would be a yes vote.
Okay, Paul?
Well, I did notice the upkick to the 31 or 30.9 in terms of coverage, but, and when you go out there and look at the lot feels small when you look at it. But I don't think that's inconsistent with the neighborhood in general. And I think that I agree with Ed that the changes in the design and so forth that might be recovered by changing the coverage really affect the look. And the look is more important, I think, than the coverage number. So I think as a result, overall, my conclusion would be that this would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And I think the design would be complementary to the neighborhood. So I'm more inclined to say, let's give way on the coverage issue and preserve the design that's been presented.
Steve, your thoughts on deliberations, if you were voting?
Yes, well, I said before that I like the design. You know, that the lot is so small that no matter what you do there, is going to add a percentage point or two, just, by building a mudroom off the side. So you're sort of behind the eight ball in some cases because of the lot size. And I'm wondering that if, and I don't know, if some of these other houses had full basements, their gross floor area number is going to go up proportionally. So that's sort of a difficult number to use because it may not be, apples to apples. I was concerned about the proximity of the garage to the property line. But the people who are most affected don't seem to have a problem with it. And it looks like they also have some sort of structure that's close to the property line as well. The difficult thing, and I think other folks have said it, is that, you're already above the lot coverage percentage, and you're increasing it by quite a bit. But again, anything you do there is going to increase that number. Could this be scaled back a little bit? Maybe, but I'm not really sure of how much it would pick up. You might be able to gain, 2 or 3%, but you're still going to be considerably over the lot coverage. I think it's in keeping with the neighborhood. I think a lot of the other houses have similar designs to this. I think it would fit in nicely. And I guess if I were voting, I would probably support this.
Okay, well, I can comment if you'd like, or...
Very much appreciate your comments.
Yeah, so sadly for you, I agree with Mr. Nixon and Ms. Fenwick. I think I can just put it in very simple terms, too big of a house on too small of a lot. I think it's a really important spot in Chatham. It's right on the end there. And I asked Sarah to put the rendering up again, so I just think it's too big for that lot. If you shrunk it down a little bit, I think we'd be very happy to approve it. Would you like us to vote, or?
If you be so gracious, Madam Chairman, approximately
Absolutely.
1 minute.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In light of the circumstances, a couple of one quick response, if I could. We could cut off the shed attached to the garage, which is less than 100 square feet, slide it a couple of feet away, and just gain 100 square feet. from coverage because it would no longer be counted. That's the sort of thing that could be done, but I'm not sure what end would be served. Having said that, we understand what you have said to us, and we would ask that the matter be continued to allow the Gallaghers and Mark to work on something, ask Clark Engineering to plot it, and I don't know what date would be best for Sarah. October would be a little bit much, but I'm guessing June.
Right now, I'm currently scheduling for June 13th.
Would you feel that June 13th would give you enough time? Recognizing that
The other thing, we'd have to rely on Clark Engineering. They generally are behind.
June 27 might be a better date.
June 27th is wide open.
What about withdrawing and without prejudice? And coming
I'm
back?
politically liberal but economically conservative, and I don't want to file another filing fee and advertising fee unless necessary.
I'm going to see what the board thinks of that.
It's up to the board, but if a continuance to June 27th would be satisfactory to you, fine. Otherwise, we would ask to withdraw.
What do you think, Mr. Veach?
I think a continuance is appropriate here, given where we are and where they are. I think it's, I don't think, they're either going to be able to come back with something that satisfies enough board members, or they're not. And I don't see, rather than asking them to withdraw and come back from that, I think we can go ahead with this the way it is.
Yeah. What do you think, Ed?
I'm fine with the continuance.
Yeah. Dave?
I'm probably not fine with the continuance because what we don't have is any concrete idea of how to do this. You had a quick conversation, the three of you. If all of a sudden you said to us, hey, look, we're going to do X, and we think that that's going to satisfy what's going on here, then I'd say, great. But I don't get that feeling. I don't get the feeling that it has been thought out to the point where say, okay, this is the house we're going to design. And if that's true, I think it should be withdrawn and then come back with that. So if I'm wrong about my assumption, say so, but I just don't get that feeling.
Please.
Should I respond? Well, clearly, the message is to reduce the coverage. I can't yet tell you how it will be done. We recognize that this matter is almost certainly, if we are approved, if we approve the end of June, the special permit wouldn't be available until end of July, and this would be a post-Labor Day construction project. It wouldn't slow us down because the board imposes limitations. It wouldn't slow us down if it were continued to a July hearing. That would give us time to come back. I would be reasonably certain we'd be able to do all of that. But if the board prefers that we withdraw without prejudice, I would so ask. It's up to the board.
Let me ask the rest. Paul, what do you think?
I don't see the need to require withdrawal. It seems to me we could continue this, and if they don't have an appropriate plan when they come back in, then that's it.
And Steve, your thoughts?
I guess I would be for a continuance, but as long as it's going to be in a relatively short time. If it's June, I guess that's okay. If you're going to push it out to next fall,
No.
then probably not. But a continuance is probably okay with me.
Ginny, what do you think?
I agree with Mr. Litchfield. The issue is the coverage, and so there's really, and it's a small lot, so there's really, no one was really opposed to the gross floor area. We understand you're going up and you're going below. It's the footprint. So there's really not that much you can do. It's just shrinking the footprint. So I think you probably can do that rather quickly, and you're probably anxious to do it. So I would support a continuance.
I'd be willing to vote for a continuance if it was July.
Okay, all right.
So our first meeting in July is July 11th.
Madam Chairman, we request the board allow us, request that you continue this matter until July 11th.
All right, Paul?
I will move to grant the requested continuance to July 11, 2024.
And Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote?
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon? Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
And Paul?
Vote yes.
As do I. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Can you sign that one? No, okay. All right, when Sarah's ready, we're going to go to application 24-030. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break before we do that, if we could, Chatham TV, okay? Comfy break. All right, Sarah, we're back. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals, and it's 4:30, and we're going to continue our meeting.
Application number 24-030, Robert Dubus, 60 Indian Hill Road North, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 85 Stony Hill Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 14G, Block 29, Lot 5. The applicant seeks dimensional variance to allow for an exterior mechanical system appliance generator to be located 8 feet from the easterly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The property contains 4,400 square feet in the GB3 zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the protective bylaw.
Welcome, Mr. Dubus.
Good afternoon. Nice to see the board all chipper today. Anyway, my name is Bob Dubus, 60 Indian Hill Road North, and I own used to be a family dwelling, but now it's a single-family dwelling that I own and my wife own. And we have an issue with it being a very small lot. There's only so much I can do with it. And there is a temporary generator there now. And I'm getting sick and tired of going down and in the middle of the night, if it's a snowstorm, a rainstorm or something, starting it up, going inside, flipping all the buttons that are supposed to be flipped so that the family that's there can have food and heat and a few lights, and they have small children, which I know is irrelevant in a lot of times, but the kids like to watch TV, obviously. So I'm willing to spend the money to put a real generator in there. And I know that the 15-foot setback is mostly for sound between neighbors. This particular lot has an 8-foot concrete wall with its nearest neighbor, with a 6-foot-high fence on it. I went and I have an app that shows me the decibel output of the generators. Starting at 15 feet, it's 80 decibels. And if I go 30 feet, it's 75 decibels. If I go 70 feet, it goes to 66 decibels, and that's a straight line across to the neighbor's house that's about 100 feet away. If I go to the top of the hill, where my closest neighbor is, the decibel output at 15 feet is 62. If I go to 30 feet, it's 55. And so it's considerably less with that concrete wall. The further I bring the generator out into the yard, the higher the decibels will get to the closer neighbor, because it goes, as you go out, it goes lower and lower. The neighbor's fine with it. I believe he wrote a letter stating that. The other problem I have is it's on a little banking to keep it up in the air a little bit, because the backyard floods in a very heavy rainstorm. And there's not too much that I can do with that. Moving it is kind of tough, because no matter where I put it, then it becomes more involved in the electrical part of it and the gas part of it. So I'm asking to let me place it between 8 and 10 feet away from the wall, or the property line, I should say.
Would you like to go through the criteria, please?
The only thing that I can see, because it's not a house or anything, is the soil conditions, whereas if I move it, the more I move it away from the wall, the deeper it goes into the lot where it could get flooded out. And I do not want to put it near the barn, because I'm afraid if there was ever a fire that it would light the barn up or the house up. Those are my concerns. It's not a hardship to me. You know what I'm saying? I can't see any of the criteria that outlay a generator, other than the noise.
Okay, so are you saying that the soil conditions are met in your case?
Well, no, because if I move it, the further I move it out, the further down it goes to be flooded, and I'm afraid of flooding.
Yeah,
It might be topography.
Yes, the topography.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not affiliated with your lingo.
Okay, well, you're here to ask for something, so we have to affiliate you. So, are you saying you don't have a hardship at all if you don't get this?
Well, I do, because I'm gonna have to keep coming down and pull coding it. It's a movable generator,
Yeah?
and I'm tired of doing that. I want to make it a permanent generator.
Can you think of any other type of hardship you might be able to claim?
You want me to be honest with you? No.
Yes, we
No.
do. So I think you've said that desirable relief can be granted without a substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying the intent of the purpose of the bylaw, because you feel that it won't be noisy there.
Correct. It will, that's basically, my neighbor, it will be more happy with it where it is than if I move it out.
All right, so at this point, thank you for that presentation. Is there anybody here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, no one here, no one online. I will read the correspondence. There are two. One is from, let's see, Jason Gravel, and he lives at 85 Stony Hill Road. Let's see. My name is Jason Gravel. I am writing to express my support for the variance request submitted by my abutting neighbor, Robert Dubus, for the installation of a permanent generator at 85 Stony Hill. He actually lives at 93. I believe it's important to share my perspective on this matter. I fully understand and endorse my neighbor's need for a reliable power source, especially in a coastal community like ours where severe weather events can disrupt electrical services. Given the importance of ensuring the safety and comfort of their household, the installation of a permanent generator is both necessary and reasonable. I am confident that my neighbor has considered any potential concerns regarding noise, aesthetics, and property values, and has made efforts to mitigate any adverse effects on the neighborhood. Additionally, I believe that the benefits of having a permanent generator far outweigh any minor inconveniences that may arise. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Feel free to reach out if you require anything further. Jason Gravel. And then we have a letter from, I think it's the HBDC. They met on March 6, 2024. The Historic Business District Commission met and rendered the following decision with regard to the application of 85 Stony Hill Road to replace the existing generator. They approved 5-0 in favor. And that is the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that has a question or would like to speak against this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing none, we will go with questions from the board. Dave Veach, any questions?
I think I understand the nature of the, so I don't think I have any questions at this moment if something comes up.
All right, very good. Ed Acton, questions?
Yeah, just so I guess I fully understand, the closer the generator to the wall, the less decibels, because
Less
the walls are...
decibels to the nearest neighbor. He lives on, he's the one that wrote that letter. He's the closest abutting neighbor.
Yeah. And the current gas generator seems it's a couple feet from the wall.
It's close. It's
Yeah.
probably 4 feet away.
Yeah, okay. And then the new generator, is it like a full house generator?
Yes.
Like a 22 kilowatt or something like that?
It's 18.
18, okay. And you're suggesting moving it 8 feet, but if it was even closer to the wall, it would probably be less noisy for the neighbor? Is that?
Probably five or 7 decibels, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No further questions?
Questions, Dave Nixon?
Yeah, so I understand the noise for the neighbor, but you seem to be convinced that this is something you want to do for your tenant. So I don't understand how it's going to be quieter for your tenant, because it's right there.
It's not. It's benefiting my tenant, no matter what I do. This allows the tenant to have the electric oven, the electric stove, the dishwasher, the washer dryer. She is a professional woman they have two small children, and so laundry is a big thing, which with the generator that's there now, they can only have heat, the burners on the stove, the refrigerator, and the TV, and a couple of amenities, internet and sort of stuff. So what I'm trying to do is because of the kids, they need laundry, they're a young family, they need clothes, they need food, they need everything. It's not so much the winter. I'm worried about the house freezing in the winter. But what I'm worried about is when we have a big storm out here, sometimes the power goes out for 4 or 5 days. That's not unheard of in Chatham. So I would like to be a good landlord and have the family be able to maintain themselves without me worrying about them.
This will be fed by the gas on the street, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. That's the only questions I have.
Okay, Ginny, questions?
Yes, I have a couple. Let's talk about the gas line. So I thought you made a comment that you like you want the location where it is in the back because it's more of a problem for you?
Yes,
Gas line.
I
the
want it in the
ga-
back because they can run the gas line through the house.
Okay.
Because there's already gas to that corner.
Because there's gas right there on the
Right,
corner.
that's the outside.
Yeah,
That's the opposite side of the house, but there's a gas line that runs through the house.
okay.
And they were able to bring it out, and they would only have like a 20-foot trench for the gas line coming out of the house. And the same with the electricity comes out that way, too.
Okay, so it's
It's
more convenient
It's economical to
to do it in
leave
the
it
back
there
and not do
put
it in the
that way.
front where the gas line is?
Yeah, I would never put it in the front, and the HBDC probably would hang me to put it in the front.
Okay, all right, another question I had was, how long have the renters you're referring to, how long have they been renting there?
They've been renting a year and 2 months. We rented the house before,
Uh-huh,
and 2 people lived there for 12 or 14 years.
okay,
And the house was in such disrepair that the family was going to tear it down. And we decided to rehab it because we need young families in this town. And they're looking for a permanent house, but because of the interest rates, they asked if they could stay a while, and I said, as long as you want.
well, no, I appreciate that. In the time that you've referred to them a few times and the things that they need, and as Mr. Nixon said, the concern for the tenant, which is admirable. How many times have you had to go out and turn the generator on? 'Cause you said-
Twice.
Twice in a year and 2 months. Do you have plans for that garage? I call it a garage, but I think you call it a barn.
Well, it is a garage, 2-car garage.
Okay. Are
Do I
there-
have plans for it?
Yeah.
I'd love to leave it just the way it is.
Okay. You mentioned that the current generator is 4 feet from about 4 feet, and you want to move it further, 4 feet farther away, out
Well,
closer in the middle of the yard?
I'm trying to make it not as non-conforming as I can. I'm asking
I
for
see.
roughly
Okay.
7 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, but the closer it is to the wall, the better it is for.
So that was
for
the
it.
reason for the extra 4 feet, is to try to get it to at least half of what the setback
Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm
Okay.
trying to not, ask for the moon. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
only
I
asking
was-
for a couple shoes.
Well, I just was wondering why you wouldn't want to just keep it where it was. Did you
I
own
do.
on the other side of the wall? Okay,
Would like to keep it exactly where it is.
okay.
They have the 2 kids, that's the only playground they have in the back.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 kids, and I am going to put a fence around it.
Okay,
So-
that's all I had, thank you.
Steve?
I was going to ask a couple of questions. I don't think, I think you might want to consider putting it on the side of the house where the gas meter is, because I think they're going to be reluctant to use an existing gas feed in your house. What is that feeding currently?
Just the furnace. It's already been approved.
By
Everything
the
is-
generator company?
Oh, yeah, I'm only, this whole thing was gonna go, if I used propane, they would've just put it in, but because they needed a gas permit, then they found out they had to have 15 feet. And that's the holdup. It's sitting, it snows already to go in.
Okay, because I'm surprised that they're willing to, because a lot of times they need a certain amount of pressure and volume, and they'll actually go directly to the regulator and the meter.
You're right, but there's only one service on the gas line now, and that's the heater, and it
Okay.
doesn't take much.
All right, and I don't think they're going to want you to have that enclosure either around the generator. I think they need a certain amount of feet around either side of
They
it.
need 2 feet around it.
Okay, so are you intending to keep that enclosure that the existing generator is in?
No, I made that box.
Right.
So that the generator that is there.
Right.
Could have air and not get rain and snow on it.
Right, but I don't think you're going to be able to keep
Oh,
that.
no, that's going away.
Okay.
Sorry. No, this is a regular Generac generator that you see all over the place.
I understand. I understand.
But I'm gonna put a small picket fence so the kids don't go near it.
Because I think they would like to have 2 or 3 feet all the way around it for maintenance and for.
Yes.
For air cooling.
Yes.
And you might want to consider, if you get some flooding back there, you might want to consider maybe elevating it somehow. That's up to you. Because it's not
Where
easily.
it is right now won't flood.
It's not easily done
It's
later.
in a depression.
After it gets installed. But okay, I was just kind of curious why you didn't want to put it on the side of the house. There's no neighbor there to disturb. It looks like there's a driveway to your property in the back
That
there.
actually is that's even closer to the lot line than where it is now, believe it or not. The side yard,
Okay.
the front of the garage has 2 inches to the lot line.
Okay.
When you walk out the door of the house, it has about 5 feet. So it's really not conducive to do that.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Paul?
I think Steve may have asked some of the questions I was concerned about. The water that you're getting, as I look at the photographs, would be between your existing generator and towards the house?
In the barn, it slopes
Yeah.
down.
Yep.
Back in the 49, they didn't really care about grading. That was given to my uncle donor by my grandfather, because his wife and my grandmother were sisters, and they needed a place to stay. So they gave him that small square and said, "Here you go." So they really didn't care about grading. They just got a house.
Yep. So you're not going to need to elevate it in order to avoid getting water on that generator?
Well, I need the elevation. Where the generator is now is the perfect spot to keep everything out of the way.
Okay, I don't think I have any other questions.
Dave Veach had another question.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Bob, it sounds like, if we're able to grant a variance, it sounds like your ideal place for it would not be the 8 feet that you're asking for, but maybe 2 feet off the wall.
No, I would go 4 feet off the wall. It would give it enough airspace to run properly.
Okay, so because if we grant, it needs to be specific to the specific location, so maybe we might want to be asking, well, we can't ask for less now, okay.
We can't ask for any less.
Right,
It was
we can't
advertised
because
at
it's
8
been
feet.
advertised. So, yeah, so if you wanted to, if we grant it today, you'll need to put it at the 8 feet.
That's fine. I
Okay.
have no problem
I
with that.
just trying to clarify that one.
Is there any reason why you can't put some fill in the backyard?
Yeah, it'll flood the basement.
I'm going to ask the building commissioner, what do you think about this topography back there?
I haven't been to the site to check it out, to look at it, but, I mean, I understand what he's saying. If he elevates the grade, he's gonna pitch the water in some other direction.
Sure, okay, thank you. Yep, very good, very good. Okay, so if no one else has any other questions, Paul?
Let me ask one other question. What about adjusting the lot lines? Can you add some space if you were to negotiate something with whoever it is that owns?
I own the property next door.
That's what I was thinking.
I have partners, and they,
Yeah,
it's, sometimes it doesn't get too pretty.
yeah. They're not partners in the house
Well,
situation.
it really, no matter where I try to put it, it's not the perfect spot. Okay, unfortunately, this one spot happens to be economical for the gas and the electric and the noise to the close neighbor. Like I said, the barn on both sides is the property line. There's a fence back there. I don't know if you can see it or not. And that is, if you look at the gate is dropped to allow the water to come out. So but it does get spongy back there in the heavy rain.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I guess I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
And how do you vote?
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes.
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
As do I. Okay, deliberations, Ginny?
Well, I mean,
Microphone.
I understand everything that Mr. Dubus is saying, but I mean, we have very strict criteria, and I don't know that there's really a hardship other than an inconvenience and a desire to not have to come out and start it. I also am not sure I understood, maybe some of my colleagues can clarify, why it couldn't go closer to the garage, which would be, I think the comment was potential fire, but don't generators go within a reasonable distance to structures frequently? So I wasn't sure about the hardship. I mean, the topography is, the concerns that Mr. Dubus raised, the slope, and it's mostly that he just doesn't have much of it to really put it in another place. So balancing the strict criteria that we have to follow with the best location, which maybe is where it is challenging.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, I think I can understand that you want to help the tenants, and it makes sense. But I think it might help you if you had perhaps a little bit more professional assistance in making an argument on behalf of the generator. To do it in a manner that would present it a little stronger to meet our criteria than what you've been able to do. But I'm having trouble seeing how the topography here is so much different from anything else in the neighborhood, or couldn't be corrected sufficiently, or would come up with a justification for the generator that would satisfy our criteria.
Dave Veach?
Well, to me, I think that the topography includes the retaining wall. And I think that, I mean, I can at least look at it as that's a significant part of the topography. And it's also an issue with respect to the noise and noise for the neighbor and things like that. So, I mean, I think that maybe it's a little bit of a stretch as far as it meeting our criteria, but I think that that's a good reason for what he's asking for. I think it's a very good reason for what he's asking for. As I said earlier, I mean, I'd be fine saying you could put it closer to the wall, given all things concerned, but that would mean a re-advertising and all those other things, which I'm sure he doesn't particularly want to go through. And with respect to the hardship, it says hardship financial or otherwise, and honestly, I'm glad I've got a generator that's piped in gas. If I had a generator that a building I was responsible for, that I had to go out in a storm and keep putting gasoline in, that's a hardship, as far as I'm concerned. So I think he's showing enough of a hardship here, and I certainly don't think that this derogates from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So I have no problem with supporting this.
Ed? If you were voting.
There's days when I'm glad I'm not voting, lots of days. I don't know that it necessarily meets the criteria for a variance, but, it because of noise, because that wall's there, it makes sense to, I appreciate what you're trying to do. Even closer to the wall might make more sense, but I don't know that it meets, a hardship criteria.
And Dave Nixon?
If I could ask the building commissar a question. How close to that garage, now you haven't seen it, but it's a garage that's separated from the house by X number of feet. How close can this generator go to that garage? It's no living in the garage, it's just a place for 2 cars, right? Yeah,
Manufacturer specifications, I would assume 3 to 5 feet.
okay, thank you. So, I really feel it doesn't qualify for the variance. I have a generator, and I know what you're talking about. Fortunately, it's run off the gas in the street, and when you put one in, wherever you put it, you're not gonna continue with filling it up with gasoline and all that. So I'm sure you'll take care of that, even if you put it 10 feet east or west or whatnot. So I don't see the hardship for you. I see, frankly, you have to be one of the nicest landlords that I've ever met.
Thank you.
That you would, no, I mean it. That you
I even put air conditioning in too.
Okay, see? I mean, you're a good guy. But in the variance world, there's needs and there's
I understand.
And there's wants.
I understand.
And this is not a need, it's a want.
So, Mr. Dubus, you have to have 4 out of 5 votes. You heard the rumblings here.
Go ahead and vote.
You want us to vote?
One way or the other, the generator will go in, whether it's where I want it or not, or where I think it should go and be the best for the neighbors is another thing. So,
Excuse me
take the
one
vote.
second. Yes, please.
If you are denied by this board, you cannot come back for 2 years.
I will make it work. It might not be the most perfect thing,
Okay.
but I will make it work.
So the option is either being denied, or you can withdraw without prejudice and locate it to meet the
I've spent too
setback.
much time doing this already, okay? I know where it should go, and I understand the qualm about it, all right? But it only affects the neighbors differently wherever I put it, and I don't, in the kids, whatever I do, I have to worry about where the kids are, okay? And I have to worry about fire, and I have to worry about other things. So I'm here I wanted to be here to see if I could have this put in a proper place that would allow the neighbors the least amount of trouble, myself the least amount of trouble, and it's where I put it, it'll be difficult to bring vehicles in there to work on the house, okay? It's the only access to the backyard.
Yes?
So go ahead and vote. If you vote it down, you vote it down. If you vote for it, I'd appreciate it. But I don't want to carry this on forever. This is costing me a lot in time and energy, and I appreciate your feelings.
I might just add that I tend to agree with Mr. Acton, who's basically saying maybe you want to end up applying for a variance that would not take it as far away from the wall as you're suggesting now. It would be more compatible with the people in the neighborhood and so forth, but you can't do that without re-advertising. I understand that. But a withdrawal without prejudice would allow you to come back at any time.
He has
The
one.
generator's going in no matter what happens.
Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to get it where it should go.
Okay.
But obviously, I've already spent a lot of time and energy on this, and like I said, it's sitting in Orleans right now. So I'm worried about if we have a bad storm, that I want it to work. I want to take care of these people. They're nice people. I understand. It is what it is. Okay.
Okay,
I'm not going to hold it against you. It's just I'm trying to do it the right way. And I understand if I hire a lawyer and come back and this and that, I don't want, this is a one-shot deal.
Okay. All right. I
Okay.
just wanted to make this suggestion.
All right, so, Paul,
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds.
and how do you vote, Dave?
And Veach votes yes.
I vote no.
And Ginny?
I vote no.
Paul?
I'd vote no.
And so do I. Sorry, sir.
That's all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. We have one more application. When Sarah's ready, it's 24-032.
Application number 24-032, Pacifico M. and Marla Ruth M. DeGuglielmo, care of Dave Requena, 1 Marion Drive, Unit 5, Carver, Mass. 02330. Owners of property located at 20 Skippers Way, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 1A, Block 14, Lot S30. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming exterior mechanical system appliance, AC condenser, on a non-conforming lot via the replacement of the exterior mechanical appliance. The existing exterior mechanical system appliance were non-conforming in that they were located 9.6 feet from the southerly abutter. The proposed exterior mechanical system appliance will be non-conforming in that it will be located 9.8 feet from the southerly abutter where a 15-foot setback is required. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 10,752 square feet where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protected bylaw.
Sir, please state your name and go ahead and give your presentation.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I'm the home builder, 420 Skippers Way, David Requena. We were before this board on March 9th, I believe, of 2023 to get a special permit to raise and reconstruct this building. We started constructing the new house in November of last year, and the owner of the property realized that the AC condensers are or would be really visible from the street. Where we had requested them previously would be, so on that image there, on the north side of that image, so when you're coming down Skipper's Way, you could see it there. It would be right out in the open. They had asked me if we could put the AC condensers under the proposed staircase, as you can see there on the south side of that image. We reviewed the size of his two condensers, and we came to the conclusion that they would fit under the staircase. And then we would screen around the staircase to hide the condensers. So it actually provides additional screening for those units. They'd be out of sight. It would help to block some of the noise. And the original AC condensers were on the south side, just to the east of that staircase there. That's there now. That's almost exactly where the new staircase is going to go. One thing I did want to clarify, I know there was some confusion as to what we're proposing now and what was approved prior. When we came last year, as you saw in that last image, the AC condensers were going to go on the east side of the property. We are proposing to put them where they were before on the south side of the property. And again, they would be below the staircase, and we would screen the two AC condensers in that space. It doesn't get any closer to the property line. We're not increasing any lot coverage. It actually reduces the sound to the neighbors, I think, and it hides them out of sight. Nobody will see them.
So there are criteria, and so can I clarify, where it says proposed, so that's not where you want to put them?
So in this image here, Madam Chair, the proposed location is correct. It's under the staircase.
Yeah, but we got some paperwork where it said proposed. Sarah will point it out.
Sure.
The plan that was also included was the original location that was part of the previous special permit. This location complied with all of the required setbacks, therefore didn't need any relief from the board. But this is what the owner had originally considered doing. Mr. Requena came into the office to speak with us prior to filing or going ahead with the installation, and we explained to him that the old site plan we had didn't show the location of the exterior mechanicals. So we were able to find an electrical permit from, I think it was 2007 or 2008 when they were installed, so they've been there for more than 10 years and prior to this bylaw going into effect. And the applicant was also able to provide us with an image of the existing, or before the house was demolished, the unit in that location. Now, that location coincides with this plan, which shows on the southerly side, there had been existing units there, and they're proposed to go approximately in the same location, maybe a few inches further away.
That's right, Seth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so could you go through the criteria quickly?
Yeah, I didn't see a lot that applied aside from, I mean, it's in our opinion, definitely not more, it isn't more detrimental to the neighborhood. We're not increasing any lot coverage. I mean, I can go through the items
No,
one for one if you want to put them on the
that'll be all right,
screen.
if everybody's comfortable.
Yeah,
Very
there
good.
isn't a lot that really
Okay.
applies on the list, I'm
Okay,
sorry. Yeah.
very good.
Yep.
All right, so is there anyone here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please make it known. Seeing none. I don't think we have any correspondences. We do not. So if there's anybody here on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against this application or has a specific question, please indicate. Seeing none. Questions from the board? Ginny, questions?
Yeah, I have a few. Let me make sure I got this straight, okay?
Absolutely.
The existing proposal, the mechanical, the AC unit was going to be on the southern side, correct?
The original proposal that was approved last year, they were on the east side.
Okay, well, it's confusing. So Skipper, you really have a corner lot.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
You made the comment like where it was proposed, so you're saying that proposal spot is the east side?
So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Sarah.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah, I see that now.
Yeah, no, that's
the
okay.
east side. Yeah,
So originally, the house that existed, the AC condensers were on the south side of the house by the staircase. We had, because of the lot, we had proposed that we move the utility to the east side.
Okay.
Which is what you see there.
yeah.
But it's pretty, it's gonna be pretty visible. So the owner had requested that we relocate it back to where it was originally,
Which is over on the side
on
where
the
that.
south side,
Okay, but wouldn't
under
you?
the stairs.
So do you not agree that it's actually more visible from that side of Skipper's Lane?
No, it isn't, because we're gonna screen
So
under
narrow.
the staircase, so it'll be out of sight entirely. It'll be hidden.
I didn't see a staircase when I went to the site plan. Is it not up
It
yet?
isn't there yet because it's not final graded.
So is it gonna be a staircase from up above going down like the old one was, or is it just gonna be off of the doorway?
No, so it comes up, as you see in this image here, there's gonna be stairs that go up along the house to a landing and then goes up onto that first roof deck.
Okay, all
Yep.
right, so they're not there yet?
They aren't there yet.
Okay.
Correct.
So is it, does the pool come into play? Is that part of the reason? You didn't mention that, but I see now the original plan didn't have a pool, and the new plan does. So is that one of the reasons why you want to move it from that location?
It doesn't really interfere with the pool at all. And I think he had brought this up prior to the pool, because where it was gonna be was right outside the entry door. So it really doesn't interfere with that part of his patio at all. It's just, his main concern really is that it's just right outside the door when you come out of the house. And on the plan, he couldn't really visualize that. But once the house went up, it's really obvious. You walk out the door, you're gonna look at two AC condensers, and they're gonna be right there. That's the only place we could really put them, because how you get into his new basement, there's a staircase right there. That's that little wing off the east side. They have to go close to the door, and it really is an eyesore.
Yeah, so I was just asking for that clarification, because your original location did not require the relief for the setback, where this one does.
Correct.
So, and you made a comment, I think, that what you're proposing is actually gonna be better for the neighbor, but isn't the neighbor right there? And I know there's a bit of a wall, a retaining wall now, but the neighbor's right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fence and there's a row of shrubs, but we are proposing to enclose the equipment. So,
Shrubbery. Okay,
well, no, so underneath the deck, we actually want to enclose the equipment with like a horizontal lattice.
kind of like what you had before. Hidden underneath the stairs and everything.
Correct, yeah, correct.
Okay, I don't have anything else, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank
Steve,
you.
questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Paul, questions?
No questions.
Dave Nixon, questions?
If you left it on the east, where it, on the original site plan, couldn't you hide that? I mean, you were describing how you would hide it on this side, but couldn't you hide it over there? I mean, these things are not huge, so, shrubs or whatever. I mean, I don't see why it has to be visible from the street. If you put it where it was proposed a year ago, it could easily be hidden.
I suppose that's accurate, but now we're adding another structure, we're adding the fencing in an area that's already relatively tight. It's not, he had the equipment on the south side before, and he's just asking to put it back where it originally was. Yeah.
Okay, next question, where are you gonna put the generator?
If he does the generator, it's gonna be where his pool equipment's going to go, and it'll be conforming.
I don't understand why it would go where the pool equipment is, but,
Because if all the pool equipment is there, instead of having one fenced-in area in the front and one in the back and have them all over the place, that pool equipment area is compliant. So if we put it there, it's gonna be inside of a enclosure, inside of a fence, and other shrubbery as well. So it'll be pleasing when you come down the street. That's still being worked on by his architect. So I don't want to speak too much to that, but if he does a generator, it'll be compliant with the code. We aren't proposing any other nonconformities.
okay, but there's a huge difference in noise between pool equipment and a generator.
Generators are pretty low decibel these days.
Come and listen to mine.
No, I understand, but I think they've come a long way. I think they are pretty low decibel. Now, I mean, we install them pretty often. They are pretty low decibel. And if you put the generator inside of that enclosure, it's over 15 feet, and it's actually, if you look at the neighbor's house to the east, his house is back where that engineer's stamp is on that plan. So it's actually a lot farther away from any houses in that location, in the front. So, yeah.
Dave, do we do yet?
No, just to clarify, so you're talking about the AC condensers or they're heat pumps or that?
They aren't heat pumps, they're actual AC condensers.
AC condensers?
Yep.
Yeah, but, the noise level is much less than in a generator. That's all I had, thanks.
Ed?
No questions.
No? Okay, Paul?
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds and vote yes.
Okay, Dave Nixon?
Yes?
Ginny?
Yes.
Paul?
All
And I
yes.
vote yes as well. All right, deliberations. Paul?
Well, I can see as he looks back on it, why he would not want the exterior utilities located where they were proposed. I think in part because the pool is going to go into that location or close to that location. But the location underneath the stairs, given that it's going to be enclosed, and given that it's not objected to by the neighbor from that location on that side of the house, and it replaces what was there before, it seems to me it probably complies with our standards.
Okay, Dave Nixon?
Well, my problem is that in the future, we maybe have a generator, maybe we have all the pool equipment, and maybe all this stuff should go together. Not just what you were talking about, the pool equipment and a generator, maybe this stuff should go there too, instead of having some here, some there, some there.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. Can I just comment to that, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So we have considered that. The only downside to that is that we have to run the refrigerant lines underground, and that is not efficient. And it's a hard thing to do, and if there's ever any issues with those lines, you have to dig them all back up. So it's wise to keep that equipment as close to the house as possible. You bet.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Paul. I don't think, I think this, for some of the reasons he just said, this makes more sense. And, if in the future they put a generator and they put it in a conforming location, well, more power to them. But I don't think that this proposal is any way more detrimental than what was initially proposed as far as the neighborhood goes. So, let's support it.
Ed? If you were voting?
Yeah, if I was voting. It's unfortunate that you didn't note the existing location on the plan when you originally filed it, because I don't know whether there would have been any objection, or, you could have made an argument, but now after the fact, it's not meeting the setback requirement. So I guess if I was voting, I would say you're sort of stuck with where it is.
And Steve?
Well, I think putting it under the stairs is probably a good use of space that would normally probably be wasted. And the fact that you're going to screen this, and this is where this equipment was before you started this project. And we didn't get any negative letters from any of the neighbors or anything, right? So I realize it does have to be close to the house for reasons that you explained. So I don't think I have a problem with this.
Okay, thank you.
And Ginny?
So this picture speaks 1,000 words. Mr. Acton's right that we didn't have a chance to really deliberate before with the location vis-à-vis the setback, and now you're asking for that relief. But it was there before, and this picture does show that. Even though it wasn't on the site plan, we didn't deliberate. So that's in your favor, a very smart thing to do, to take the photos as you are pre-construction. I think the fact that it's an AC unit, and also when we went to the site plan, we did not see the stairs. It just looked like it didn't make sense there because it's so narrow. It is right on the street. You can see it. It's actually closer to the street than the other one. it's just because of the corner lot, right? Skipper's
Yeah,
Lane.
it's actually farther away from the street.
Okay, it doesn't
yeah.
look that way from the site plan, but,
Yeah, yeah.
so anyway, it just seemed as though, at the time I was looking at it, on site, it looked as though it didn't make sense to try to move it over there. But your comment about the refrigerated lines and it really staying, as close to the house as possible, and if you screen it there, and as Mr. Veach pointed out, they're not very loud, the AC units. But I am curious about the generator location. You're going to have a quandary when that comes up. But I think I could support the, because it was there before.
Yeah, and I see that too, because it was there before, and now you're a little further from the neighbor even, just a teeny bit. So it's hard to say, given that this is the application we have in front of us, that it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. Although I understand Mr. Nixon's concerns about what could come down in the future. But I couldn't vote against it. Should we do a straw vote, or I'm really not positive where we're at?
I should,
Just vote, yeah. Okay, all right, Paul.
well, I'm trying to think where we're at. Have I moved to close? the
No, you
hearing?
might as well do that.
I think so.
We'll do that. Well, I think we could just vote, actually.
Why don't I move to close the hearing and move into deliberations? All right, we did do that.
Yeah, we did that.
All right, then let me then move to approve the application as submitted.
And Dave each seconds.
And how do you vote?
And I vote yes.
And Dave Nixon?
Well, I don't like it, but I can't vote no in this case. It isn't, is it substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood? No, it is not.
And Ginny?
I vote to approve, yes.
And Paul?
I vote yes.
As do I. It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Little trip.
You guys are fun to watch. I have to tell you guys are very organized.
Well, I guess we put on a good show anyway. That's a,
We enjoy it. All right, so that concludes the ZBA. We just need one more motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
and Dave each
And
seconds.
how do you vote?
And votes yes.
Dave Nixon?
Yes?
And Ginny?
Ginny votes yes.
Paul?
All vote yes.
As do I. So,
Stephen Ed?
Do Steve and Ed?
Stephen Ed, how do you vote? You vote to,
Steve votes to adjourn.
all right, we all vote to adjourn then. And that's that. What time is it, Sarah?
It is 5:19 PM.
All right. Good night, Chatham.